Hey there! Welcome back. Here we've got Miss Raynella with a bandage on her hoof that needs to come off and get rebandaged. Hey there, I just wanted to go over a few things before this video gets started. Now, before I got my horse, she had her front hoof get caught up in a barbed wire fence, and since then she's had a persistent crack in her hoof for several years now, and I have been working with a veterinarian from the beginning. It's one of those things you can't really fix it, but we do our best to manage it. It also impacted the hairline and her coronet band and where the hoof grows out. So lately she has been lame, and one of the things the veterinarian has done is to resect her hoof, which means they kind of cut out a chunk of hoof. So I can do another video more about what is going on, but as part of this, the hoof does need to be bandaged. So this video will go over removing the bandage that the veterinarian applied, and I will be applying a new bandage in its place. Now I have these safety scissors that I'm going to use to cut it off. They have a special tip so you don't accidentally jab and hurt your patient. So I'm starting by carefully cutting away at the bandage. There is elasticon on top of vet wrap, on top of cotton. And it is a thick bandage, so I am having to take small snips. Just keep going down her leg, again being careful that I'm not accidentally poking her or jabbing her, working bit by bit. I do find it helpful that as I go along, I cut a little bit, pull a little bit, cut a little bit. That works well for me. Now, as we get down to the hoof portion of the bandage and cutting that away, that was the most difficult part, because the bandage was quite thick down around the hoof, and the multiple layers of elasticon, which are very difficult to cut through. So here I found that working at a little bit of an angle while I cut things away worked well. Again, just really tiny cuts at a time because the material is so thick. So I just continue working my way down the bandage. One of the things that I do is I will try and pull open the bandage as we get down near her, as we're working along her hoof. I know this is a little hard to see here. I am just, again, tiny bits at a time, cutting at a diagonal along the bandage. Now I'm going to see if I can pull it off of her hoof as if it were a hoof boot. Now the first time I hadn't cut down quite far enough and I couldn't quite get it. So I will grab my scissors and just cut down Oh, a little bit more, another inch or so. So again, I've cut it down just a little bit, and then I'm going to remove the bottom of the bandage as if it were a horse boot. And then it just pops off all in one piece. So this is what it looks like. Kind of wonky looking. You can see the outer elastic on, then the vet wrap, then the cotton. Alright, so I'm going to come up a little closer with the camera, and one of the first things I'm going to do is check her leg. So she has had this bandage on, and you can have bandage bows or other problems, but going over her leg with my hand and feeling there's no warmth, there's no swelling, her legs look and feel great, and that is awesome. And if the bandage was done right. Now, then when I pick up her hoof, you can see this looks wonky. It is straight up weird. Not gonna lie, there's no way around it. So it's called a hoof resection, and basically it's like she just got a chunk of hoof carved off. So there we go. And it's weird. Okay, now here I am taking photographs of the hoof and how it's looking. These are to share with my veterinarian. Again, this is not something that I am doing on my own. Brunella is under the care of a veterinarian who is directing this whole process, and so we are staying in communication to make sure the healing is going as it should. Alright, here are the supplies. Rolled cotton, cotton gauze, elastic-on, vet wrap, and gloves. Okay, on to the next step. I do have on some latex gloves. I find I can kind of mess around with things and it's not quite so gross to me. What I'm doing right now is just picking off any little bits of cotton that are remaining after the bandage removal, kind of get it cleaned up a little so we can apply to a cleaner surface. Just really picking out all those little pieces of cotton, and it's really nice having the gloves on because I feel like I can get in there to any little bits or crevices, and I can kind of really examine her hoof and or any wound that your horse has. You can examine it, and it's a little bit more hygienic, and it's just a nicer kind of process when it's not your bare hands. Okay, so now I've got a little bit of ointment on my gloved finger, and I'm going to put it on the resected hoof. I am just using a little bit of ointment to keep some moisture in there, and this has a little bit of chlorhexidine in there, which will help prevent any infection from developing while the hoof is wrapped. I also have a small roll of gauzy cotton. You can use squares for this part. I was using the bandaging materials that I had on hand rather than purchasing anything new, and this works great. So it's just some gauzy cotton, and I am wrapping it over the area where the hoof was resected to contain the ointment. Next up, I have the tall roll of cotton. This is like a batting, and I'm going to wrap this around her leg and the hoof. I've also prepared by bringing the vet wrap over with me. Alright, so I kind of measured to see about if it would go up as high as I wanted, and then I'm lifting her hoof because what I'm going to have her do is step onto the bandage to make sure that it covers the hoof. And continuing from there, I will keep working, wrapping it around the leg, and it's hard to see, but underneath her hoof as well. So from the bottom of the hoof up, it will be surrounded in the cotton. And then once I have that in place, I am taking the vet wrap and I'm going to go around the cotton with the vet wrap to secure it in place. Now, just a reminder here that wrapping legs is a skill. It's great for every horse owner to know how to do this, and preferably before you actually need to do it. So improperly applied wraps, they can do a lot of damage. The blood supply to the tendons in the back of your horse's leg can be easily compromised if your wrap is too tight, if you apply uneven pressure, or if it slips down and bunches up as a result of that. Also remember to choose the right bandage for the right circumstance. You need a different bandage for the stall versus if you're riding. And you do want to practice getting the correct tension, because if it's too tight, it can injure your horse's tendons, and if it's too loose, it will slip. Which direction you wrap isn't critical, so just pick which works for you if you're right or left-handed. And I am continuing to wrap the vet wrap. I have wrapped down the leg, and now I am going around the hoof. And with these different materials, you do need to use slightly different amounts of tension, and how much tension to use when applying a wrap depends on the materials and is something you just have to learn by experience. So a properly applied bandage should stay in place without slipping and be snug against the skin, but not snug enough to indent it. So it's nice to be able to slip a fingertip between the bandage and the leg. So again, first was the cotton, and then a snug but not overly tight application of vet wrap to hold all of that bandaging material in place. It can be a little tricky in real life when your horse, is moving around a little bit. That's pretty normal and fine, and so just take your time and be patient with your horse. And then what I was doing there at the end was just pressing on the bandage with my hands to help secure the vet wrap, because it does adhere to itself. So just pressing it so that it is securely adhered to itself. Okay, so next up after the vet wrap or Coflex wrap, which is super, super stretchy, is the Elasticon tape. So Elasticon is an elastic tape, and it's a really great for a variety of applications when for areas that are really difficult to wrap. It stays on well, but it does not stretch very much, so it can be a little tricky to apply because you have to kind of unwrap your roll and then wrap it on the area. It's very sticky. You can see it's a little tricky to get it going. Now I started on the hoof and I did a couple short sections. This might be a little hard to see, but I basically did a little cross on the bottom of the hoof, did about the length of, covered the hoof up and down, covered the hoof with a side-to-side piece, and then I started wrapping up. But that way it just gave like 2 extra layers there at the bottom of the hoof, because that will be a really high wear area, and just providing then a little bit, a little more for the bandage to be more durable and last, because I do want this bandage to last for an entire week. So now that I have those two layers, like a little X on the bottom, then I started wrapping from the hoof up the leg. Here I am going around the circumference of the hoof, which is it's a little bit tricky. Again, just be patient with your horse. It's a little odd for them too. I'm just checking that underlayer, making sure it's still smooth and snug. I say, come on, pony, let me see your hoof. Trying to get it done. Alright, so I am continuing to apply elasticon as I work my way back up the leg. My horse is getting a little tired of this, but she's mostly being a good girl, and I'm just trying to be patient and work with her. And we're backing up. And so you might have to do this too. Just bring her forward and say, oh, let's just try again. Just keep going. One other thing that you'll notice that I do as I am applying this bandage is I do try to stay on the side of my horse so that I am in a safer position. I try not to be right in front because as she bends her leg, if I'm right in front, she could accidentally clonk me in the face. So I do try and stay to the side to be safer. We are so close to being done. All right. Oh, look at that, a thing of beauty. So here we have it. We have the leg bandage after the hoof resection, and the horse is able to move around, have some, well, freedom in her stall, and we'll be good to go, and this should last for the next week. Thanks again for watching. Hope this was useful, and please go ahead and hit like and subscribe. See you soon.